Hi, I'm Meredith Vieira, and I just had a great conversation with Kara. She is fantastic. I opened up my heart to her. We had such a good time. I kind of don't want to leave because she's like a new girlfriend.
Hi, friends. This is Kara. Welcome back to Really Famous, where you get to know your favorite celebs on a super intimate level like never before because I was a therapist. So that's just how it goes. Right now, you are about to get to know Meredith Vieira on a totally personal level. Yes, you probably know her to some degree now because she's been all over TV, The View, to The Today Show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, everywhere. But you don't know her like you're going to get to know her in this talk. This is the real Meredith Vieira. At least I think it is. You let me know what you think by dropping a comment during our talk.
As important as anything, who you surround yourself with. I just want positivity around me and not I mean, I don't mind helpful criticism, but I don't want people who are going to bring me down or see the world in ways that just are really negative. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to have fun. At the end of the day, I want to know that I just had fun doing what I do.
Yeah. And you must have, I mean, you've been exposed to all kinds of people over the years and had to work closely with all kinds. So, what do you do when you're stuck with somebody or with a team or people who are kind of negative and the opposite of what you like?
Well, I try to not really put on my therapist hat, but try to get it into their minds because usually when people are really negative, there's some reason behind it. I try to use psychology a bit to figure out what it is that presses those buttons in them
Mm-hmm.
and make the experience as positive as I can for myself and for that person. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't so much. But in my business, there's so much turnaround. And, when you're working day to day as a journalist, you always had different teams. And so when I was able to build my own, I made sure that the people that I selected fit my mindset.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's true that with the psychology of it, you're spot on because it's not you, it's them usually. There's a reason for it, but it may be
Right.
that there's something in their past that also maybe you bring something out in them that has to do with something that has nothing to do with you.
Exactly, exactly. And it's really important to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Hmm.
I once did an interview with an actor who was my hero. I couldn't believe I was meeting this person, and he was so obnoxious. It was a movie junket, and I said to my husband when I got home, I said, I wish I'd never met him because I had this whole other persona in my mind of who this guy was, whatever, and it didn't match up at all. And Richard said to me at the time, and I think he was so wise, he said, well, what kind of a day do you think he was having? Which interview was this for him on a
Hmm.
junket that probably he doesn't want to be on, but he has to be? And so he just sort of that Atticus Finch, walk in someone else's shoes. I mean, the
Totally.
comparison isn't really fair between, To Kill a
Yeah.
Mockingbird and this experience, but it really is true that sometimes, like I said, if you can get into their head, then you can feel an empathy towards them instead of feeling a resentment or feeling annoyed. Go, okay, I think I see where you're coming from.
Hmm.
It didn't help that interview because I didn't come to that realization until that was done. But I was able to like look at the guy when he was in a movie and go, okay,
Right.
I don't know what caused that, but I still think he's a great actor.
Right. I'm surprised you were doing movie junkets too, because I know they hate movie junkets, right? Those are like the worst. There are very few actors who actually enjoy the junket because for
Well,
everybody who doesn't know, it's 5 minutes or less with a different journalist, and it's the same question over and over and over again.
over and over and over again. And I think a lot of times they will either want to say, why can't you be a little more creative? I've done junkets, and I'm so impressed by journalists who think outside of the box and don't ask the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's just lazy reporting. You can always come to, no matter where you are, um, and whomever you're interviewing, you can always come at it with a fresh angle if you're smart and you do your homework. So I get why there would be frustration, even though I thought I was doing a wonderful job at the
Sure.
time. I think this is not, I'm not asking the typical questions, but what I was on West 57th, that was one of my
Yeah.
incarnations, and we did celebrity interviews every once in a while, long form, like 60 minutes would do. And this guy, because he was so famous, I got to do the profile, but he did not want to go do a sit down. He didn't want to spend any time with this. So the agreement was I would get that time with him during this junket. That's how I ended up on it.
Oh, well, that's not the same at all.
It's not the same, but in his head, I was whatever number I was. I think I might have been the last person of the day because they were going to give me like 5 minutes more, which still amounted to like a 10-minute or 15-minute interview.
Yeah.
Not really difficult to build a whole profile around, but you take what you can get sometimes.
Yeah.
And and I'm not even sure that when he walked in that room, he knew that that's what that was, or it was just one. I think that I don't know when I've done them, I look down the list. Okay, I've got this. And occasionally a reporter will be asking the questions that have nothing to do with the movie, and they've sort of been able to get in and do that, and that's fine, but I'm not necessarily aware of it. So that could have been the situation with him. I don't know.
Right, right. It's always so interesting. You never know what you're going to get, right, with an interview.
No, exactly.
That's kind of the fun thing about it, I guess. But I know what you mean. Like, I always want people to look at me and think of me as me, not just a number, like you're saying. And like, I'll do
Exactly.
everything I can to make it clear that no, I'm really interested in you. Like, I'm not just going to ask these same questions so that I can just have that little soundbite that whatever
Yeah, and you want
publication
to
is
you
looking
want to
for.
ingratiate yourself
Yeah.
immediately, instantly. You want to be somebody in a non-antagonistic interview. Obviously, you want to be somebody's friend and confidant, so they feel comfortable really sharing themselves with you as best they can. But that's a two-way street, and if the other person has barriers up, it's tough. You
Yeah.
have to sort of chip away at those walls, and you're not always successful.
That's absolutely true. So you have interviewed everybody, I'm sure. So I really can't even believe when I think about all of the outlets that you.
Sorry, it's my
Oh yeah.
cat.
Oh, is that your cat? Do you want to
Yeah.
like
I
hold
can't.
her up or him up?
She won't. She's acting up.
Oh,
Okay. Hopefully she'll.
we're pet friendly. It's okay. I've had my
Oh yeah,
dog
yeah.
crash the interviews plenty.
Oh yeah. No, she's crashed interviews. I just did the talk recently, and
Oh,
well, last year, but late in the year, and I'm sitting there, and suddenly she's on my lap, and it was fine. But
yeah.
sometimes she'll cry for attention, but I think she's fine.
So
I'm sorry.
are you happy to do these, like to be interviewed as much as I know you love interviewing and being on air with your story? So how do you feel about being on this side of it? I mean, you seem so comfortable and natural with it.
Well, it's funny that I'm a very shy person, believe it or not. I mean, I'm not. People who knew me as a kid would never have thought I'd end up in the field that I'm in, interviewing folks. For me, it almost became therapeutic in the sense that it got me out of my shell. Because when you're interviewing somebody else, you're not the subject yourself, but you're drawing another human being out. And that's what I really love about it. So when I'm interviewed, I've done it so many times that I've gained a certain amount of confidence, and I'm a little bit more comfortable with being on the other side. But it takes a little bit for me. I'm not defensive, and I'm not nervous. But when you're in the public eye, so many things can get distorted that you say, little snippets of things,
Yeah.
and I hate that I even worry about that. And it never stops me from doing an interview. And sometimes somebody that knows me will say, "You gotta just not say so much," because I get caught up in it, and that's kind of who I am. But so I have a love-hate with being interviewed. But you're very easy to talk to.
Oh, thanks. Well, I mean, I just have a regular conversation, so I'm not going to get you or whatever with something. You know, you're
Yeah.
not going to take something you say and
No,
then use
usually it
it.
isn't the interviewer; it's somebody else who pulls it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. That's true. But I do think about that too sometimes with people that I can understand that when they come into an interview with me, how can they trust me? So even if they feel it from me, which I'm totally authentic, genuine, but even if they might feel it, they can't be 100% sure, I guess. And a lot
right,
of people have been screwed before for exactly
right.
that reason. So I do get that. I actually interviewed, I interviewed Spike Lee once for the Sunday Routine. And I remember when I got there, I felt like he didn't want me to be there. Like he did not want to be doing the interview at all. And I remember thinking to myself after, like, to him, I was the New York Times. So I represented all of that. I wasn't just Kara Mayer Robinson.
Yes,
I was the New York Times. And so when you walk into somebody's house or whatever office, or get on the Zoom call with somebody, you do also have to understand that there's so many other things that are on their brain that you represent. So it's complicated.
it is complicated. On the other hand, when I was in the Today Show, we would get celebrities on, and they're coming on to promote. Usually, that's why
Yep.
they're on, and they would just sort of mope around, and they would be kind of just half-assed about the interview, and I wanted to say to them, "You're a freaking actor. Act. At least act like you're
Yes.
interested, because this is more for you than for me, honey. You're here to promote your film, and you're boring." And that to me is, if you're going to be on this side, you put on the your big boy pants and behave. Just deliver.
Yeah, I'm with you too. By the way, I feel like you almost just said what I posted on Instagram the other day. I had this whole post about I used to be shy as a kid, like a super shy. And then I came out of my shell a little as I grew up, but then it's really having this show that has turned me into like an extrovert now. It's bizarre. My parents will be like, "We don't even know what
Who are
happened." Like
you?
it's yes. I'm like the most talkative person at the dinner table now, So, but I do think you're exactly right that it is interesting that by being on the other end of it, you do learn those how to be that other way. It's so interesting.
But it's funny, when I started in journalism, I started locally, but then my first job network was CBS News, and you had a handbook that you had to memorize before you start. I don't think that even exists anymore. There were so many rules that had to be followed, and one of the primary ones was that you never allow yourself to be the story. It's never about you. This is back in the days where you never even saw me on camera,
Right.
very rarely, and that fit into my personality, actually, because I did get out in the field. I met people, which helped me get over my shyness, but I didn't have to be showcased. And that was great. I didn't want to be. Then The View came along, and I was thinking, I don't know if I want to do this. This is where I have to actually talk, and have opinions. And I was trained for years not to have opinions. So here I am, to just give the news lady, just the facts. And I became like an unleashed animal. It's like I was let out of a cage, and I was saying crazy stuff just because I could say it. So I had to learn to rein myself in a little bit, just because I was nervous to do it, but I sort of got a kick out of it too.
That's so interesting. So were you scared leading up to it? Like, so what happened? Did Barbara Walters ask you, say, like, let's do this together? Or what? How did this
So
start and what were your
no,
thoughts?
I had been at the evening news, and then I did West 57th, and then right after my son was born, or while I was still pregnant, when I went off for maternity leave, I was offered the job at 60 Minutes.
Mhm.
And so I went to 60 Minutes, and it's kind of a long story. I had my son Ben, started working at 60, and it was very much an all boys club, a boys club, and I found it a lot of pressure. And if you were not in Don's office, sort of performing, quote unquote, what was wrong with you? And I had learned how, by having a kid, I knew how to um, time manage pretty well, because you have to. So I would do my writing late at night, and I worked with my producers. If I had a story that would take 5 days, we did it in 2 days. I just did a lot of interviews so I have more time at home. And I think that rubbed Don the wrong way. And I made my peace with Don. So this is not anti-Don Hewitt at all. He's a genius. But I think my baby was Ben, his baby was the show. And we were butting heads a lot. And then I got pregnant with my second son, Gabe, and that was the handwriting on the wall. So I left 60, and I did early morning news with John Roberts, who's now at CNN. Actually, he had just come out from Canada, and we did the show together. And I'm not a morning person. Go figure. That because I've done morning
Right.
stuff, but I just couldn't stand it. And nothing about John. It was just exhausting. I was at work by 2:30 in the morning, and I just had no life. It was awful. And then I think I kind of planned getting pregnant. I didn't, but I did somewhere in my subconscious, because I got pregnant
Subconsciously.
with Lily.
Uh-huh.
And then when I had Lily, I left. That was it. I didn't want to do that anymore. And then I got offered a job at ABC at a show called Turning Point, which was long form, with a wonderful woman named Phyllis. I'm blanking on her last name now. I'm sorry to say that. That's terrible. But she got me. And I said, I don't know if I want to go back and do that, because I want to do my writing at home. And she said, you can do your writing in your bathroom. All I need for you, I really like what you do. If you figure out however works for you. If you never want to come into an office, you don't have to come into an office. And I delivered for her probably 120%, because now it was me proving that I could do that. And she let me. She said, I trust you to deliver. And I really enjoyed that. And then when I was there, the show was sort of fizzling out. And Barbara Walters knew Phyllis and knew Betsy West, who was also one of the top people at our show. And she was looking for somebody to be the moderator for this new show she had come up with, this talk show, with all these different generations of women.
Yeah.
And she contacted them and said, well, I think she's very good, but this is to Betsy and Phyllis, but is she funny? And they said, well, she's crazy. She's silly, but yeah, she's very funny. I just lost an earring. Cue funny.
Oh, that is funny. Look at you. Your timing is impeccable.
Look at me now. Exactly, the clown that I am. And so she asked me to audition, Barbara, and I did in the hotel room in Manhattan. That's where they held all the auditions. And I went begrudgingly. I don't really watch morning television, nothing against it at all, but I was working. So, and I was a little bit of, well, I'm a journalist. I don't know that I really want to do that. And again, Richard, who's very level-headed, he said, look, you're a reporter who doesn't really want to go out and report anymore because if I had little kids, I didn't want to be on the road. He said, so why don't you it's an audition, just go and maybe it'll open your eyes to something else, to other possibilities. And so I went and I sat in this hotel room with Barbara. The first group was Barbara, Star Jones, I think it was Joy and Debbie. And I loved it. It was so weird. I loved it. And I came home and I said to Richard, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really enjoyed it. And I said, but I'm never going to get it. There were so many people. I'm never going to get it. And then I got it.
Oh,
and
so
that was
you
it.
loved it right from the audition. You loved it.
Yeah, I knew that it was, I'm big on change. And yet I'm not at all, but I like to shake stuff up. And I knew that my husband was right in the sense that I loved what I did, but I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be on the road, and this was an opportunity to try something different. And I've also always believed in this business, and maybe it's being a woman, but I felt the more skills you have, the greater your skill set, the more likely you'll have longevity. So, I knew I could, as a journalist, I could tell stories. This was something else. Okay, can I do talk? And so I jumped at it, and I don't regret it at all. I spent 9 years there and grew tremendously and had wonderful experiences. At the end of the day, I'm not sure that's the perfect format for me. I don't know if there is a perfect format for me, but it was a great experience. It was great to work with Barbara and to get to know the other women. And also when you start something from the ground building up, there's a camaraderie when you're in the trenches that you don't have if you just walk into another show. It's just different. You're all in it together. You're all fighting to get the show off the ground. I had that with West 57th as well, the show that I did before, 60 Minutes. And there's something very there's a bond that you create that is very special. And then when the game show came around, Millionaire, and I was offered that, I thought, okay, I like Millionaire. Why not? People said to me, why would you do a game show? And I said, well, I like game shows. What's wrong with game shows? And that was Regis's show, that he didn't want to, the only reason I got it was he didn't want to do syndication. He had done the prime time and he wasn't interested in doing syndication. They would have given it to him. And I'm so glad that I adored doing that. That was so much fun. I did that for 11 years. Yeah. Also with Today Show for a few of those years as well. 5 of those years.
There isn't there doesn't have to be a perfect format because you like change and you like all of these. So that's like the best of both worlds. To go from 60 Minutes. So you were the youngest reporter at the time, right? On 60 Minutes? Yes. That's major. I just read Katie Couric's book. Did you read it?
I did not. I don't, and I'm sorry about,
all good.
Honey. It's okay. That's Sweet Pea, for those who wonder. I'm not really interested, this is nothing about Katie, in industry books. I'm in the industry, so I don't particularly gravitate toward them.
I got it.
So no, I didn't, but I saw a lot of clips, whether fair or not. Clips it's like taking a part of an interview and focusing on that.
Exactly.
But I saw that.
Exactly.
But tell me what you were going to say.
Yeah, so she did say it was tough, especially at like an old boys club like you were talking about. I know that she said in the book that it was tough, and that was her dream, of course, to get to 60 Minutes. But yeah, so that's major. And then just to go from there and all the other, I just have to get back to Barbara Walters again. So
yeah, sure.
Barbara is like A total icon. I remember trying to get her to book her for the New York Times Sunday routine. I wanted to talk to her so bad. I was like, oh, that'd be so good. I couldn't get her. I just couldn't. I didn't even really have a contact who worked with her. So I guess I gave up on that. But was she
Yeah.
amazing? Like, what was she like?
Yeah.
Wait, first, let's take a break. So this is Sweet Pea, right? Did you say Sweet Pea?
That's Sweet Pea, yes.
So my best friend who I grew up with, her cat, her name is Sharon Velasquez, and her cat's name was Sweet Pea, and she lived to like 18 or something like that.
Oh, well, she's 17 now, so
Oh,
she and her brother Felipe are, yeah, just almost 17. Yeah.
cute.
So yeah, we had a dog, Jasper, who I love, and he passed away in November. And you know, you reach that point with your pets where I mean, it's amazing that my animals are my buddies, my companions are as old as they are and doing well. But that's the hard part about having pets,
Yeah.
saying goodbye. But anyway, I didn't mean to digress into that.
No, I
But
know it's heartbreaking though. I know it's like, oh, I think about when my another dog I had died. It was like seriously, it was just it's crushing. So I totally
yeah,
understand. I'm sorry about Jasper.
no, well, thank you. Well, he died in my arms, which is I can't
Aw.
ask for more than that.
And
Yeah.
he lived a good life, right? Did
He lived
he?
a very good life. Yeah, he was
Okay.
waiting for me that morning, November 1st. He was at the bottom of the staircase, and he never did that. And I just knew. And we just sat there. But it was the most amazing thing. He had started to have some seizures, and he was having a seizure, and I just knew this one was different. And I'm holding him, and my two cats came up to him and sat at his head like sentries, and they did not leave him until he passed away. They sat there for 1 hour. It was unbelievable. It was like, we are going to be here for you. It was, I get emotional. I think about it because at such a difficult time, it was actually beautiful. It was like, they
Yeah.
knew.
It's
They're
yeah.
smart, those buggers.
It's no animals or something about their
Yeah.
sense that they have. It's like it's not like
It's
I
nothing
don't know.
we have. Yeah.
No,
It's
no.
beyond that. It's beyond that. So
But it's nice that you can look back and think of it as beautiful because
yeah,
it
oh,
was, and that's life.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's life. At the end of the day, that is life. So that's a part of it. And I mean, he was ushered into his new world by his best friends, you know.
That's sweet and sad.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so we
Oh,
were
so
talking about
Barbara, back to
Barbara.
Barbara.
Barbara,
That's
let's
that's a
switch
difficult
like
segue from Barbara. Well, I'll go to my dead dog and now Barbara. Yeah.
I bet
So
if
she
anybody could
is.
do it, it's you. Let's how about you? What would your segue be?
I am another old bitch. No, Barbara. Barbara would love it. She's Barbara Walters. I mean, she's really smart and she's tough, tough, tough. And whatever Katie says about the difficulty in the business, or I say, pales in comparison to what Barbara was the trailblazer. She faced much more than I ever did, and I'm not even going to speak for Katie, but certainly much more than I ever did. And she had a stick-to-itiveness about her, and she was going to do it, and she was not taking no for an answer. And even when she was with Harry Reasoner, those were dark days when she was anchoring with him. He was not nice to her. She didn't get the backing of the network that she deserved, but she ended up being let go from that show, but she didn't give up. And I think she rediscovered herself, or they rediscovered her when she started doing long interviews and made a name for
Oh,
herself. So by the time, obviously, The View came on, she's an icon beyond
right.
icons. But I didn't know, if you wanted to hear a really filthy joke, give her a martini. She had the most incredibly, and I don't mean in a bad way because she's such a classy lady,
Yeah.
but she could tell it. And I think it may be because her dad was a nightclub owner. She was around that whole environment. That's where she was raised, really. And so she knew how to deliver a line. She knew timing. And because it came out of her mouth, it was like, oh my God, wow, I just heard the most amazing joke from Barbara that I can't even repeat. But that was part of her charm, that she was a
Hmm.
complicated person. And I could see why she wouldn't want to be interviewed by you, because she was also private and very
Oh,
shy as well, but very, very private. She had a persona, and she
yeah.
didn't really like people seeing behind that.
That makes sense. And that's also,
Yeah,
like you were saying before, that's more of what it was then. It was like nobody really needed to or wanted to hear, or you weren't supposed to hear from the people who were telling the story.
right,
So, but
right,
even when she did the long form interview, you would get a sense of her. But like you said, it was her persona, I suppose. And The View, we probably saw a little bit more of her there. But I
right,
see what you're saying, that, and right, even if whatever she shows to the world, she doesn't necessarily want to show everybody everything. Um,
right.
and that's interesting too. So it's like you, how she didn't realize until she was doing this other format that it was really her thing too. Not that reporting wasn't her thing, but these long form interviews, like how interesting that she went a long time without even doing those, right?
Yeah, I don't think she was given the opportunity.
Yeah.
But then when she did them, she was able to get people to say things that nobody else had because I mean, she talks about sort of, I don't think she had an affair with Fidel Castro, but, they were flirting with it. She really got people to speak, to
Uh-huh.
share things they hadn't with others. And she could be very flirtatious. She knew how to work it, essentially. She knew how to
Yeah.
work it and get those questions in where you went, wait a minute, what did she just ask me? What did I just answer? And then she's
Love
on
it.
to the next thing. She was good at it. She was really, really good at it. But she was also a taskmaster. When you were on The View, she didn't like something, you knew about it because that's what had happened to her when she started. She really believed you got to toughen up.
Mm.
That was part of the deal. So she could be hard, but I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. She expected from everybody what she delivered.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were not professional, if you didn't know your stuff, um, you know that she knew about it.
Well,
Either she
that's
would tell you or she'd tell the producers. That's unacceptable. Yeah.
so then the producers would have to tell you.
Sometimes, or they might say she would call you in if she was pissed about something, but that's okay. I well, this running thing about when a woman does it, she's a bitch. When a man does it,
Uh-huh.
he's
Right.
a, a leader.
Yeah.
But so she was up against a little bit of that, but she was always also ultimately a lady. I remember I had sort of been doing this anyway, but every new person she would meet who'd be part of the show, like a co-host or whatever, one of her biggest pieces of advice was always write letters. Don't just jot down something in an email. If you want to tell somebody thank you or you want to share something, always write a letter. It's important. It was that old school way of
Yeah.
doing things. And to this day, that's what I do.
Wait, so who do you
And I
write
think she's
letters to?
right. Well, if a friend does something for me, or
Oh.
for example, when I was on Millionaire, one of the rules was you were never allowed to meet the person before or ever see them after. So you had
Wait,
that
or ever
moment.
see them after?
Yeah, you could not,
Why?
I mean, you might run into them, but that was just a rule that you had this moment. And I think it was for legal reasons. I
Okay.
don't know why the after, but and also why would you see them after? They were people from all over the country who came in and then they leave and you're on to the next contestant.
Sure.
So I always felt bad because people would lose and I didn't get to say I'm sorry or anything. I just say goodbye and did that. So I wrote everybody a note, every contestant, where I just said I thank you for coming and I make a comment about how great they were or make them feel better if they bombed out or a joke or whatever it was, just so they knew that I appreciated them and that without them we wouldn't have a show. And that's the kind of thing I think Barbara would have done.
Uh-huh. I
It's
love
not a
that.
big deal, but
Yeah.
and it just shows that you care about it. That sometimes people who host shows or whatever think they're the show, and they're not the show. I mean, sometimes they are, but the shows that I've done, you're not the show. The show
Uh-huh.
is the show, and you're a vehicle. And certainly in a game show, as Alex Trebek said many times, it's about the game. It's not about you. And once you make it about you, you're destroying the whole nature, the whole construct. So I was very aware of that, and I wanted those contestants to know that they were the key to the show, not me.
Yeah.
I was just a little troublemaker, making them feel nervous.
Well, making them feel good though, probably
Yeah,
too. They
yeah,
probably felt
no,
very
both.
comfortable when they saw you sitting there across from them, like,
Yeah.
okay, it's Meredith Vieira. I'm okay. I'm gonna be okay.
But I also knew how to tease people because the most important thing you can do with someone on a show, a game show, is relax them.
Yeah.
because people are so nervous and they will not do well if they're nervous. And I would tell them, you're here because you passed that test. You don't have to worry about the
Uh-huh.
game. You just have to relax. And usually if I did a little teasing with them, they would laugh and it was like a relief, a little bit of the pressure was off.
Yeah. They can breathe, take a breath, and then actually
Yeah,
think about
yeah,
whatever the question is.
exactly. Because it wasn't my money. I wanted every single person to win $1 million.
Sure.
I
Of
wasn't giving it
course.
out.
So the thank yous, let me get back to that for a second.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I love that idea of a thank you. And I think that especially today, even though an email thank you is easy, I feel like people are so busy and getting on to the next thing that they don't even really give much thought to thank yous. And I personally think they're so easy and they make such a difference. Like if I get a thank you from somebody, and it's not that often really, it really makes my day. And I just think these are the little easy things that have fallen by the wayside, I think, over time. I mean, do you remember growing up, if you got gifts or birthday gifts or something, your parents probably made you write the notes.
Absolutely. I got the
So,
stationery every year at Christmas
yeah,
just for that reason. Now go in your room and write to Nana, write to this, blah, 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 blah. Sure. And
exactly.
I mean, it's called, what is it called? Etiquette, I guess,
Yeah, it
just,
is.
and
It
it's
is.
part of growing up, at least when I was a little kid, it's part of growing up. And I don't mean to belittle the email. Thank you. I think that's great too. I also think it's great sometimes to and Bob Saget's passing reminded me of this, but that one of the things they said about him is he never missed an opportunity to tell a friend that he loved them, or a stranger, I like what you're wearing, or whatever. He passed kindness along
Uh-huh.
so graciously, knowing that triggers more kindness. And I think it's so easy when I walk by somebody in the street, if I think they're having a bad day. Now, I don't do it like a stalker, but I'll say, or I'm in a store, I'll say, "Oh, that scarf's gorgeous,"
Yeah,
and it perks them up, And I'm not saying it disingenuously. I'm saying
yeah,
it because I think it's pretty. And you know what? You may need to know that today. You may need a little,
definitely.
because I need it. So I assume I'm pretty much like everybody else, and so why wouldn't they need it?
Yeah, so if it registers for you, say it out loud. Why not?
Exactly.
I love
Exactly.
that. I think
Yeah.
that if everybody should do that, and then like the whole world would just feel so much better. It's not really
Exactly. Right
a
now,
hard
boy, do
thing.
we need it too. So
That's for sure. So
yeah.
Barbara, do you ever talk to her? Like, does anybody talk to her?
I don't know. I really don't know. I do not talk to her. I mean, when she left the View, she didn't disappear, but I think she wanted her space, and I respect that. And I reached out at one point with the girls to
Mhm.
have lunch, and that just never materialized. And I'm not sure the state of her health right now. I hope that she's doing well, but I don't really know.
Yeah, yeah. And how was your relationship with Regis? Or did you
It
have
was
one?
great. Yeah, I did. I didn't have like we go out to dinner type thing. I don't have any friends on that level. That's not my thing.
Wait,
Um,
back up. You don't have any
okay,
friends
that are
in show business
celebrity.
or any?
Oh no, I have friends. I have
Oh, okay.
friends, but no, I have friends. Oh God,
I
this
meant
is
go to
taking such a
dinner
dark
level.
turn.
Oh, yeah, right.
No, I do like I'm friendly with the people on Today and stuff like that. But
Okay.
my world is very much work and then home. And I have a lot of work friends, but I tend when I go home, and especially when my kids were around, I switch gears,
Yeah.
and my focus was home. And I wasn't a big person to go out a lot anyway. Um, but it's very funny. I'm going to digress for a second. I did a interview years ago with a magazine. I'm not going to say which one, but they were profiling me, and so blah blah blah. And she's, I think I was that started Millionaire, but I don't even remember. But I already had a career, And they finished interviewing me, and they said, "Well, can we have the names of some of your friends? We'd love to interview them." I said, "Sure." Priscilla and Bobsy, and they said, "What? Who are they?" I said, "Oh, I went to high school with them. They're great. We see each other all the time." They said, "Well, no, we met somebody."
Oh.
I don't think they wanted to say important, as opposed
Mm.
to my friends are not important, but I got it. I got
Famous.
exactly what they meant. Yeah, famous. And I said, yeah, no. I have friends in the business, but not if you're talking friends
Uh-huh.
that I confide in. I have a very small group that I've known, almost all of them I've known since I was 2 years old. Because I went to an all girls school, and and that was where my bonding took place. And we've stayed friends, and some were middle school and some were high school, far fewer in college. And they're the people that no matter how, if I don't see them again, everybody says this, but it's true. If I don't see them for years, we pick up right where we left off. We're there for each other.
Mm-hmm.
We get each other. We don't care. I mean, we're interested in each one's journey through life, but we don't attach more significance to one person than another,
Yeah.
particularly based on what they do. Because you know how fleeting that is. It just, and usually it's smoke and mirrors, a lot of it. It's
Do
a
you
big
think
build
so?
up to nothing. I think in my business, people like to make a big deal out of it. And I don't know. There's something about stardom that I think is off-putting to me. And look, I can get as starry-eyed as anybody else, but I just think the emphasis is wrong. That it's creating these stars. When I've always thought it's literally about the work and not about that idolizing somebody. And now it's so prevalent with what do you call it? All these TikTok things and these instant stars, and you know, God love them. They're making a lot of money and whatever it is, but there's something about it that depresses me. I just get bummed out. I don't know. And I also know that when they put you on a pedestal, inevitably they're going to knock you off it. So if you buy into it, really buy into it, you could be in for an extremely bad fall. So I'd rather not.
Yeah.
And that's why my friends tend to be my oldest and dearest, because they know me. And they won't listen. If I ever said, well, now I'm doing this, they'd go, yeah, so what? You know, they're just good.
Right.
So I would, but I wouldn't even do it anyway.
Yeah. So interesting. So did you feel at any point like you were, I mean, you kind of are on a pedestal though. I mean, even though it's not phony, but it's for good reason, but you certainly are an icon, like, you know what I mean, yourself. So you are up there. So I know you're saying people put you on a pedestal and then they're going to try to take you down, but you're on the pedestal still. Do you know what I mean? I
do. But I think if people, I usually get from people that they admire my work. They don't go like, oh, you know, it's Meredith Vieira. And often, especially when I did the Today Show, but it still happens, but less. People would say to me, thank you for getting me through a dark time in my life. Thank you for bringing laughter into my home. Thank you. It was things that were quite emotional and special to me, because it spoke to a human connection, as opposed to, oh, you're so, you're beautiful, or I love your clothes, that kind of thing. It was, you somehow made a connection with me that I needed. When I was doing the Today Show, we did Virginia Tech. That was one of the first stories I did when there was a massacre. There were students. And I went to Virginia Tech with MacLeod and the rest of the Today Show. And there was a vigil held that night. And I went to the vigil, not to report on it. I just went to see, to be part of it. And this student came up to me and she recognized me from the Today Show. And she did not live anywhere near Virginia Tech. And she was very, very, very upset. And she went, you know, I feel like I know you and I need a mom right now. And I held her. And that's when I thought, my God, the power of what I do, the power to touch people in that way. That's an amazing gift I've been given, that I better respect and treat very carefully, because it's really deep, you know. So when I get that from somebody, then I'm okay on that, whatever that pedestal is.
Yeah.
Because it just means that I've broken through the television in a way.
Definitely. And so maybe it is a little bit less of a pedestal,
because
they feel like they know you.
Right.
And you're so comforting that they're not idolizing you, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are people who do, many people who do, but that's not what we're talking about.
No.
So is your, kind of like you said, Barbara had her persona. Do you feel like you have a persona too? Or is it like, how much of a persona versus you is it?
I think I am pretty much what you're seeing. I'm probably, like I said, my favorite thing to do, I mean, I'm shy, but to this day, my favorite thing to do is just walk out of the house and keep walking. And I can walk for hours and hours and hours. I love to be in nature. I love solitude. It might be because I'm in such a business where you're constantly, I mean, particularly when I was doing talk, or anything that had to do with audiences, or, there's people all around you all day long, and that's okay. That's the business. I'm not knocking it. That's what it is. So I think when I'm away from it, I really crave um, just being alone with my own
Right.
thoughts.
Sure. It's
And
constant, I'm sure. And like just
yeah,
overwhelming where it's right, it's fine, but then you need to step away from it and do something totally
exactly,
different.
exactly.
And so you family is everything for you, it feels like, right? I mean, so is your career. I don't mean to say that's not. Well, good.
No, but
Uh,
more family.
yeah, more family, right? I got it. Um, one more career question before we
Yeah, yeah.
hit the topic of your family. So when you were starting, because you're so successful too, what was it like for you when you were starting out and trying to make it in the business?
Well, I think part of it was I never intended to get into the business. I wasn't
Ah,
one of those people who was, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. I was a senior in college, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I pretty much had every major you could have. The dean of the university brought me in beginning of my senior year, and he said, "Do you want to graduate?" I went, "Well, yeah, duh." And he went, "Well, you better pick a major and stick to it because you're all over the map." But I think he liked me as a person. He said, the way I look at it, you have enough credits to graduate with English. So you're going with English. So I went, okay, I'm graduating with an English major.
wow.
And there was a course offered. I went to Tufts University, Jackson College, Tufts University. And my senior year, in the winter break between January and February, you took courses not for credit. And one of them happened to be broadcast journalism. And I could take two. I took that and badminton, and with equal interest in both, like not like whatever. And the class was taught by Les Woodruff, who was a reporter at WEEI in Boston at that point. Now I think it's sports, but it used to be news station. And he was great. And our last assignment was to create a radio documentary, and we broke into groups of 4 or 5, and ours was on redlining and real estate in Boston, how they were keeping minorities out of
Okay.
certain buildings. So we all went out and reported it. We all took turns writing it, and then when it came down to the documentary, there was one voice, and my team picked me to be the voice. And so they brought in the head of CBS News in Boston to listen and to critique all these documentaries, radio documentaries. And when they got to ours, at the end of it, he said, he critiqued it, and they said, who's the voice? And I raised my hand, and he said, I need to talk to you. I thought, oh my God. I just thought he's going to throw me out of school. I didn't know what was going on. And I go out in the hall, and he says, what are you doing when you graduate? And I said, that's a kind of a tough question. I have no idea. I'd even gone to secretarial school the last summer because my mom said, you're not coming home. You're going to find a job. And so I said, I don't know. And he went, I know, you're going to have a huge career. And he hired me as an intern there. He said, I want you to come intern at CBS.
What? See,
And
but that's
what am
the
I?
thing.
I'm too stupid to say no. I have no idea. I just went, oh, okay, I'll do that.
Okay, so then you're somebody who says yes to opportunities, is I think what we
I
have here.
think I do. Yes, I think I
Uh-huh.
do. I did. Then I start backpedaling. The minute I do it, I go, oh my God, oh my God. I remember at the Today Show, I said to Richard, I was on a bridge. I wasn't going to jump, but I said, I was in the car and the bridge. I said, I can't do this. He said, Heidi, you set yourself up every single time. You say yes, and then I have to hear about how you can't do it. Because like I said, I want change, but I'm so scared of it because I'm
Yeah.
scared of failure or whatever. So but yeah, I just said yes. In fact, they said to me, come prepared to rip wires your first day at CBS Radio. And I thought, wires in a radio, wires, electrical wires. So went out to, I think it was the Gap, and I bought really cute overalls, and I come
Oh.
walking in, and the guys are looking at me like, why are you dressed like that? And I said, well, I'm ready to rip wires. I was told to rip wires. He said, no, we meant wires from the wire services like Reuters and UPI and AP. You go to the machine. They used to be those old machines. I didn't know anything about UPI or whatever was AP and all. So, but again, I think in a weird way, they found me a little charming. Like,
Uh-huh.
this kid, we're going to help her along. And then I worked my tail off. I worked 10 times harder than anybody because I really wanted to show them I could do it. And I also believe that 9/10 of the game is just working. It's
Yeah.
really working. I don't think there's a free ride. And if there is, you're going to, it could be short lived, I think, most times.
Yeah, especially with your journey, there's no way you could have made it through all of these things without being like really kicking ass the whole time. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like having to really put in the work all the way. You can't just show up and
no. And
do
as a
it
woman back
halfway.
then too, boy, did you have to.
Uh-huh. So you
On the
also
other hand, oh,
no,
sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, on the other hand, I graduated in 75, and there was a lot of people were given jobs based on quotas. If you were a woman, if you were a person of color, but, and I, when I was in radio, after I finished at Tufts, I eventually got a job in radio as a newsreader on a top 40 station in Worcester. And there was a phone call from the news director, Arthur Albert, in Providence, looking for somebody else, Providence, Rhode Island. And I happened to pick up the phone, and again, my voice. He said, "Oh, what do you do?" I said, "I'm a newsreader." And he said, "Would you like to look at Providence as a place to work?" I said, "I don't know. I mean, I have a job here." And he said, "Well, come down, let's talk." And I went down, and he offered me a job in radio and television, and it was a quota. They needed to fill the shoes. So I said yes, because I saw an opportunity, even though, again, I knew nothing about television, by
Yeah.
God. But, and then I just learned. I learned and I watched, and I had people that I admired in the business, and I would watch them while forming my own style.
So interesting. What an interesting combo. And obviously it worked. So right. So the opportunities have come to you. You recognize them. You say yes to them, and then you go all in on them, and you learn and you figure it out and you do it. You go all the way, and that's
Yeah,
your yeah. And plus
it's that old
talent.
fake it till you make it. But if what I honestly learned, Kara, to be honest with you, is that I liked telling stories. All those English classes, I took them for a reason. I liked
Yeah.
reading stories, and I liked telling stories. And as shy as I was, I really am interested in people. I'm interested in their stories. I'm interested in their voices. And here was this opportunity to do it. I was the slowest typer. It was pathetic for somebody who took typing, secretarial school, so I'd have
Yeah.
a job. So my boss in Providence was like, "Oh my God, yeah, I don't think you got it," because yeah, he actually fired me on a Friday afternoon. He fired me, and I went home and I was crying, and I told my dad, because I went home to my parents' home. I'm from East Providence, and my dad said, "Well, do you think you've got it?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "Then
Mm,
why do you care what this guy says? There's going to be a million people going to tell you that. If you listen to everybody who tells you that, you're never going to succeed in life. If you believe in yourself, you'll do it." And hard work. My father was a very hard worker. And I went in that Monday, and I said to the guy, I said to the news director, "I don't care what you say. I am going to succeed." And I don't know if he thought I was going to lose it, because I was like a little crazy, but or if he just was disarmed. He said, "I'm going to give you another chance."
oh wow. That
Yeah,
doesn't happen often.
no, it doesn't. I know it doesn't. He might have just needed me to be around a little longer, because maybe they were
Yeah.
short staffed. I have no idea. But we ended up being, I mean, it all smoothed out, and it was fine. And then
Mm,
I got the call to be in New York, and
that's
went.
really something.
Yeah,
I bet also, so it's interesting too, because your husband is so accomplished too, that I feel like there is a winning combination there too, that it probably helped you and you helped him. You kind of feed off each other, right? That you're both interested in pursuing things and trying new things and opportunities and whatnot. Is that yes?
absolutely. It's a little yin and yang. Yeah. When I would get down on myself or not be sure, he was always there to say, "You've done it before, you can do it again." And very supportive of everything I've done. Some people, the thought that your wife, who was, at that point really was the breadwinner in the family at the Today Show, would turn to him and say, "I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this anymore. I know it's time to go." A lot of people said, "No, no, no, you're not leaving that job." That's a big part of our income. But
Right.
he's been so supportive of every decision I made, and I've been the same with him. And although we're both in the business, he was a producer, I was a reporter. There's a real difference between, as you
Mm-hmm.
know, between the two of them. He's very political, and I'm not particularly. I'm interested in issues, but I'm not interested in the minutia of politics at all. So we were never really in each other's lane, like trying to butt each other out. We were paralleling, and I think that helped a
Right.
lot. He's
Right.
also, I
That's
mean, he's the writer of the family. He's a great writer.
Right. So that is interesting because there are, right, even though you're familiar with the same, you're kind of in the same industry, the same field, at the same time, it's two very different things. But
Yeah,
you also, and you're able to have that relationship that you really supports one another and encourages that kind of growth and development, which is
exactly.
a lot of the factors have been there. So he
Yeah.
has MS, right? He's had it,
Hmm.
he was diagnosed a long time ago.
Yeah, when he was
So
25, yeah.
when he was 25. So that's something that you've both been kind of dealing with for a long time. So has that maybe made things more challenging, stronger at the same time? Is it kind of a double-edged sword in a way? It's so tough, but
It is. There are days where you think, oh God, this is just more than you can handle. And then there are days where MS, it doesn't even show its face.
uh-huh.
He is secondary progressive, so it's not like he's totally out of the woods at any
Okay.
particular day. I mean, there's a decline, but he's not. Some people are a very fast decline. Some people are much slower. He's much slower, but it's there. It's real. But that's we all have challenges. I knew when not long after I met him, he took me to dinner and told me. And one of the reasons he did that was because he had been involved with somebody, and when she found out, she had ditched him. And I get how that happens. People get very scared, and I think his feeling was, well, if you're going to go, I'd rather you go now rather than 2 years from now or whatever it
Yeah.
is. And I don't know if it's because my father's a doctor or I knew what MS was. I just didn't. It was sort of like, well, we're all, you don't know that tomorrow I could be in a terrible car accident. We don't
Yeah.
know what's around the corner for any of us, and it just didn't matter to me. I knew that it was going to present itself as an issue, something you had to work through, but
Hmm.
I felt like it was okay. And
Yeah.
I really liked him, and I just felt that's not going to prevent me from the path if it's meant to be. It won't end because of that. Um,
Yeah.
and then right after that, he took me for one of his checkups, and we were in a facility, I think in the Bronx hospital, and the waiting room was full of young men with MS, mostly men, even though it's more prominent with women or prevalent with women. And there were people in really rough shape. And I thought, well, you know what? It can always be worse. It can always be better. It
Hmm.
is what it is. And we've worked through it. I mean, you know, we're fine. I still think he's a jerk, but that's not why I think he's a jerk. I told him the day I met him, you're a jerk and I'm going to marry you. And both are still true.
That's so funny. I mean, because it also, right. I mean, yeah, after this
Yeah.
many years of marriage, there are going to be times you're like, hey, you're such a jerk. I can't handle
Yeah.
you or whatever.
Nobody, I mean, he was a smart aleck when I met him, but
Oh,
I liked that. I liked
oh.
that. So, but we've
So that's
always
his
challenged each other
personality.
this way. Yeah, oh, totally. It gets him through everything. He's very, very, very funny. And I think you have to have a sense of humor, particularly when you're facing illness.
Yeah.
And he has this great skill through writing to get out his feelings. And I think that's also very helpful. In fact, he's written about MS, several books, and he, the number one thing he gets from people is thank you for giving me a voice because I haven't been able to articulate how I feel. And you said exactly how I feel. That's kind of why I got involved with this
Yeah.
project on breast cancer. The
Yeah.
same thing. It's Find Your MBC Voice. And it was because, well, not, it was partly because my grandmother had metastatic breast cancer when I was a teenager, and we never talked about it. I don't think she ever discussed it. And I don't know sure she even understood the ramifications. And that was back in the day where your doctor was a god. You never would have, questioned anything they said. And what I learned through the years, and then with Richard, is the only way you can empower yourself as a patient is to find a voice. You have to be the center of your treatment plan. You have to be the one who is calling the shots along
Right.
with your team because ultimately it's your life. So when I had the opportunity to do this breast cancer, I thought, I'm on board. I've loved every minute of it. It's
Yeah.
been a
Okay.
great opportunity.
I want to ask you some details about that. So it's a
Yo,
new
sure.
project that you have, right? So it's you're interviewing people about it, and so they can watch videos, correct, of your interviews,
Yes.
and there's
Yes.
also a radio show.
Right. There's the website is Find Your MBC Voice. I always want to say NBC. I've been so trained after so many years of that network. .com, and MBC stands for metastatic breast cancer. And if you go to that site, it will direct you to the radio channel if you'd like to listen to
Mm-hmm.
a lot of interviews that we've done. We've done them with, I was doing the interviews along with a doctor, and we've interviewed other doctors, oncologists, social workers, psychologists, financial experts, all the areas where you might find yourself needing help once you've been given this diagnosis, because it is stage 4
Yeah.
cancer and there are no cures here at all. But that, at this website that you go to, we give you the tools you need if you've been newly diagnosed to find your voice. We have a discussion pamphlet, or right, that's not the right word, guide, discussion
Okay.
guide that shows you all the questions you probably need to ask your doctor at that first visit, because people, you're not equipped to some
No.
people might
Right.
know, but most people also, that's the kind of thing that knocks you to the ground
Yeah.
when you hear those words. And so it's great to have your little guide there. What do I need to know? I need to know what this diagnosis
Mm-hmm.
is. There are a lot of subtypes of breast cancer. What do I have? What are my treatment options? How do I tell my family? What about my job? What about the psychological components? There's always depression involved, and that's a fear, sadness, loneliness, all of those things. What about just navigating my day to day? What is this going to cost me in healthcare costs? What if I'm African American and not Caucasian? There's disparities in healthcare
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and even in diagnosing the disease. So, and treating it. So all of those things, we're trying to help you have the tools you need to be the center of your treatment plan,
Yeah.
because you need to have a voice in it. And once you have a voice, it's all these people I've interviewed, and they're lovely. They talk about the empowerment that comes with it. They go from being scared to feeling they're in control as best you can be. They can't control their cancer, right? They control the other things around it. And it's made them stronger individuals. And that's why I think it's important to have this as a place for people to go. There are many places where you probably could go, but this is like the central warehouse, and we
Mm-hmm.
can direct you in all kinds of directions.
I think that's key because it's so,
Yeah.
it would, I imagine it's so overwhelming and would feel so powerless if you get a diagnosis of metastatic breast cancer. I mean, that, like you said, it's stage 4. So there's no treatment, no cure. Um, no treatment, no cure, right? I'm getting that right?
There were treatments, but
Treatments, but no
there is
cure.
not a cure. And what's interesting about this particular group of people, one of the reasons so many of these patients have gone on to be advocates, that's a big jump from a patient to an advocate,
Yeah.
is because in this whole cancer world, with the pink ribbons, the people that have been pushed to the side are the people with stage 4, because they're not the story they want people to hear. And
Uh-huh.
this is not knocking the breast cancer community, but you don't want to hear about the ones who may not make it. You want to hear the success stories. And that's where people think there's hope. So I'm going to donate money to research
Mm.
because these people will make it. Meanwhile, there's this whole group of individuals that, hey, they're fighting every day, they're living every day, and they deserve to be heard, and they deserve more attention to be paid to their treatment. And what do you do for those folks? You can't just push them to the side. So they're out there screaming at the top of their lungs that we exist, and we want you to know who we are, and we want you to know what we face every day.
And their
You know,
families too,
and
right?
their
So it's
families,
not just
exactly.
them, but they
No,
need resources and they need to feel like they know what to do. So even if a patient doesn't really isn't ready to take the reins or whatever, maybe a family member feels like, okay, well, what can I do? And then that would give them all kinds of
absolutely.
tools and questions and what can I do? And it's empowering to everybody, right?
And that site that I mentioned, findyourmbcvoice.com, that's directed at caregivers as much as it is patients and the newly diagnosed, because all you want to do as a caregiver is help.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't know, what does that mean? How can I effectively help this person? What's the best way for me to use my energy and my resources to make a difference in their new life moving forward? So
Definitely.
yeah.
So all of this, right? So here's yet another way where you're helping so many people through your relatability, accessibility. Like clearly, that's your thing, is to be able to connect with people. You're interested in them, but you're again like the girl who came up to you at Virginia Tech. You know, it's like you're a gift for so many people, which I mean, that makes you feel good, right? You know that
Yeah,
about
it
yourself?
does. But I would want the same thing, and so that's how I look at it. What if it was me,
Yeah.
you know?
So it's so interesting to me too because you said a few times, "I'm crazy." You said, I think you described yourself as that, right, or wild or something.
Yeah, I
I think
mean
crazy,
kooky. Kooky.
kooky.
My
But you
nickname
seem
growing up was
so
Ditzy.
yeah, but you seem so like level-headed. You seem like you have such perspective on everything. I don't see that in you. That kooky.
Well, I am. I mean, I think I can be level-headed, and I think, I'm a
Uh,
responsible parent and all of that stuff, but I have a little bit of a kooky side, and I think that's what keeps me going.
so
I think
fun. Is
it's
that what
great to
you
be
mean?
playful, yeah, and
Okay.
not
That
take yourself
yes.
seriously,
Yes.
and look at life, look at the silly in life. The silly in life is good. You can't always be. I would never have succeeded as a journalist
Yeah.
if all I did was see the serious. I couldn't do it.
So
It
that's
would
your
it would
secret
so beat
sauce.
you down.
Yeah,
I
it's
think that's part of it.
because it's a
It's
combination because you have
yeah.
the gravitas, right? And you have the perspective and then you also have the light-heartedness. That's a perfect balanced package, just like your
It's not
home.
always in balance, Kara, but
Oh,
it's
really?
there.
Well, wait, give me an example.
Well, I can go a little bit nutty. Like I said, whenever there's change, sometimes I get right to the edge of thinking, what have I done? And I'm not going to do anything, but I just go to a place where I'm really scared. And then I take the leap, and it's a good
But what
leap.
does
And
that look like? What does it look like when you're really
it's
scared?
really, I think it's fear of failure. That's what I think
You
it is. Or
mentioned that.
yeah, or, maybe it's that people say the type A personalities are always worried they're going to be found out. And I'm somebody who came into the business as a profession without knowing anything. I wasn't the typical, I went to journalism school, I wanted this, I fought for
Hmm.
this. I was like, yeah, I'll do it, just like blinders on. What the heck?
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do anyway, so why not try that? And it worked out. It just worked out. So every time I have that chance, a part of me, it's The Road Not Taken. Is that it, by Robert Frost? A
Yeah.
part of me always wants to go down the road not taken,
Yeah.
because that's where life takes interesting turns. That's where you discover things. Don't stay right on the well beaten track. Go somewhere else. But then when you're out there, it gets dark at night. Like, what path am I on? Because no one else seems to be on it. So you have to really dig deep into yourself and say, I can do this. And if I don't succeed, I mean, I had a talk show for 2 years and it was canceled. That was tough.
Yeah.
But I never regret doing it. It was a great experience and I learned from it. And hey, there are going to be dead ends. There are going to be, bumps. There's going to be all sorts of, that's life. And it's what you take away from the experience. I didn't necessarily feel that the day it was canceled,
Okay.
but after 2 or 3 wines, it comes to you.
Right. So what did you do the day? Because again, I'm hearing the great perspective that you have on it now. Yes, you figured out how to frame it and adapt and figure it all out. But what happened that day? Like, what did that feel like? Even if it was just momentary.
It is a blur because I tend to wipe those things out. So
Uh,
I couldn't describe it fully for you, but I could sort of see the handwriting on the wall. There were too many cooks in the kitchen, too many things they wanted to change, and that's very much television. If it doesn't, if it's not immediately a hit, there's something else around the corner. And I felt like there was a time when shows would be kept on the air so they could grow and develop. And The
mm,
View is a good example. If Barbara Walters had not been on that show, we would have been canceled. They were going to cancel it, but it was Barbara, and it wasn't syndication. It was run by ABC, which is a big difference. Syndication doesn't like to take chances. Networks are more
uh,
likely to take chances. So they kept that show on, and look at it now. I mean, what is it, 25 years? So, um, so I think part of it in my own head was I was very proud of the work we did. So I kind of chalked it up to, well, it wasn't doing well enough in the ratings to
uh,
warrant another year, because that's all about the bean counters and stuff like that. And then I came to think, well, don't be so high and mighty about it. Maybe there's a reason it wasn't getting as high ratings as something else. Even if you felt it was good, maybe it wasn't connecting with your audience, and that's something you gotta accept. I'll never know exactly, but And it's hard to not succeed, especially if you've been successful. Like,
Right.
wow, what the hell was that? I didn't anticipate that, but that's the reality of life. That is, stuff happens. And I lucked into other stuff. I just kept going. And what do you, next thing you know, 25 words or less is around the corner.
Yeah. And that, no, that's exactly true. But it's like that thing, I've heard people say this before. It's like there was so much worry going to, like, will I be successful? Can I make it? How can I get there? But it's almost worse when you are successful because, like, is this all going to end? Am I going to drop off of this? Is this all going to just
Right.
disappear?
But that's where I think my initial thinking, wear as many hats as you can, as many irons in the fire, because if one thing doesn't work, something else might.
Mm.
And the fact that I can do talk and I can do journalism and I can do reporting and I can do game show has been a blessing for
Yeah.
me, in the sense that, oh, we can plug her in here, or you can plug me in there, or I'll do that for you, and I even would rip wires out of a wall. I almost did my
Yes.
first job, so I'll do it. And I think that's made me sellable. And I'm the first one, actually, when um I was offered the job at the Today Show. I went for the ride. Now I'm blank. This is terrible. I'm blanking on his name. Jeff um, picked me up, and he offered me the job. And I said to him, because Katie was leaving, nobody knew. He told me, and I said, "Aren't you skewing a little old?" And he looked at me and he said, "No, I'm looking for talent." And I think he was like, "You shouldn't be saying that. You should be confident. Why are you putting that out in the atmosphere?" And he was right. I mean, he didn't say that, but that's kind of what I felt. And sometimes I think, well, who's going to hire me now? I'm 68. How much longevity do I have? It's a young person's business, blah, 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 blah. And I have to stop that and go, no, 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 no. As Jeff put it, uh, he's looking for talent, and plenty of people are. You don't give up. Don't, even if age often is a factor,
Uh-huh.
you can't let that stop you.
I love that. And it's so great that he said that to you because you could very
Yeah,
easily just go back to that and refer to that when you find yourself thinking in that pattern. But I imagine it's so hard because that would be your natural because so many people are thinking that way, right? That's
sure.
the
In fact,
environment.
but when I was, my View contract was up when I was invited to do the Today Show. And again, nobody knew that she was
Yeah.
leaving. I knew because the guy told me. And I wasn't signing my contract at the View. And I love the View. I love the View. But I was looking, and I didn't want to do morning television, but it was the Today Show. So I'm looking at my options here, and my somebody executive at the other network where I was working with the View, he said, "You better sign this, because at your age, where else are you going to get a job?" Said that out loud. I did not. I could have gone to human resources. Maybe I should have, but I
Right.
didn't, because I already knew I had just been offered a job at the Today Show.
Yes.
So I played dumb. I said, "Oh my God, maybe you're right. I don't know. Geez, I don't know if I could get another job." I said, "But I got to think about it." And then I took the other job. I went, that was my cue. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in this
Right.
environment. I don't want to be somebody trying to scare me into stuff or belittle me. And maybe he didn't even think what he was saying. I don't know. But at any rate, I took the other job, and then it came out in the newspaper before it was even announced that I had been approached, because you know how they page 6 and the Post. And he was like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
Yeah, but it just goes to show too, like you can't listen to other people. I
No,
mean, you
you
can,
can't.
right? You have to
I
tune them
know.
out, except you do have to listen to people who say something that actually is a really good thing. Like
Right.
he told you that time, like Jeff told you, right? Jeff, is that what
Yeah.
he said?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like that. You have to listen to when you hear a nugget like that, you keep that nugget. But you also have to know, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not going to listen to you. You have to know when to do that, right?
But that's not always easy. If I hadn't had a job offering, I don't know what I would have. You know what I
Right.
mean? I had that in my back pocket. He didn't know it. I might have bought into that. I might have been scared, like, "Oh, I need a job. This is a good job. I don't want to. I wasn't going to leave it. This just came out of the blue. This Today thing. I wasn't looking for work at all. Just the timing was like it all aligned. The stars aligned, and that's what it was. I've
Yeah.
never really been looking for something. It's always just happened.
I think I mean, there's some luck in that, I'm sure, but I
Oh,
think there's something
totally.
about the way that you are approaching life that you're not, clawing your way to the top. It's just you're putting yourself out there and people respond to it. They
Yeah, I
like it.
think I am clawing my way to the top, but it's more like self-inflicted wounds, like of like, oh, can I do this type of stuff? But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So
It's
still
also,
self-doubt.
I don't want to knock this business because I've met some of the greatest people, my mentors. Howard Stringer is the first one of all. He was with CBS News. He mentored me back in the day when I started. He used to review my scripts, and back then, actually, there were very few women, and the women were so pitted against each other that it was really awful. This threat that if you don't get the job, another woman will want it. I never had an enemy among women at all. I always felt there's power in numbers,
Mhm.
um, but it was a different time. So my mentors almost exclusively were men. That just weren't women in positions of power, women who really sometimes wanted to help other women. That's why
Uh-huh.
I make a big point to help other women, because I know what it felt like to be alone. But I certainly had tons of people along the way that helped me, and so many wonderful, wonderful people in the business that every day go there to do a great job of informing the public, and they really believe it. It's not jaded. It's their calling.
Well, they say that too, right? It's all about the people who are
Yeah,
standing
totally.
behind you and with you and pulling you up
Yep.
to the places you belong, which is amazing. So
Yeah.
that's all that. So, um, what an interesting life you have. I just love it. I'm gonna close with my usual question. I have to tell you that it
Oh
is
God.
inspired by none other than Barbara Walters.
Ah.
I don't know if she asked this regularly or not, but I did. I remember seeing an interview that she did once, and I was like, I love this question. So maybe you can tell me if you've heard it or if you said it regularly.
Okay.
It's pretty basic. So it's two parts. The first part is, what do people? I'm losing all my words. What's the image that people have of you? Do you think? Who do they think Meredith Vieira is? That's the first one. Come back to it, repeat it so you don't have to think of everything at once. And
Okay.
then the second part is, who are you really? And I heard Barbara say, this is how Barbara would have said it. Who is Meredith Vieira? So two parts. First
Okay.
part is, what is the image that people generally have of you? Who do they think you are?
I think they think I'm a nice person and an approachable person and a kind person to others.
And who are you really?
That kind of is who I am. I had good parents. I think they raised me right. And I think that that's not such a big deal to be. That's kind of just being a human being, the way I look at it. But I still am a kook, Kara. Just letting you know, I still am a kook.
I believe you,
I'm a
Meredith.
softie too. I think people, maybe they don't know just how much how emotional I can get when I think about stuff. And sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, but I feel deeply, but I can feel deeply for an ant that I step on. I can feel deeply about what's going on in the world. I just feel deeply about things.
That's so interesting. So when you get emotionally, so people don't realize how emotional you can get. So
I think if they ever saw, I mean, I could be a basket case because I think I am a very emotional person. I feel a lot, and sometimes I feel more than I should. Like I let stuff get to me, and more so since having kids because I'm always worried. I'm always worried, but that something's going to happen, and I don't verbalize it, but it's internal. I don't call my kids every second and go, "Are you okay?" I just want to know you're okay, but I think about that stuff a lot. And by the same token, my son got married in September, and I was a basket case for that because full of joy, that I just can't even hold that stuff in. It was just pouring out, and so yeah, I don't. I think people know I'm emotional, but maybe not to that extent. And I sometimes hide it with humor and sarcasm and things like that.
okay, so was that the real Meredith Vieira? Did I get there with her? Did we connect? Let me know what you think. Drop a comment below and give it a like if you like this talk. Remember to subscribe to Really Famous so you can catch all of your favorite celebrities on a totally different level. Tap that notifications bell so you are notified every time I drop a new talk, which is usually every Friday and Tuesday, so about twice a week. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That always helps. Thanks for hanging out with Meredith Vieira and me, and I will see you next time.